This blew my mind. This actually made me stop and reevaluate a lot of things. And that does not happen very often with new product launches. So, what did they do and why should people care? Well, welcome back, Propapalooza 2025. No putts given. How you living? That's what we're calling it, Propapalooza, because we have nothing but props today because there's a million and one
So many things.
so many things. I'm just putting my phone on do not disturb so people won't disturb me. First time, Tony, since what, 2014, 2015, my Broncos made the playoffs. So I'm wearing a Tom Jackson jersey to commemorate this one additional week to the year, which, maybe short lived. 8.5 point underdogs playing at Buffalo. So let's start here, Tony. TaylorMade. Big launch this week.
Okay, Jesus. All right, going
No,
right
where do you
into
want? You start.
I don't care.
Start?
No, you tell me. Well, I guess we're starting with TaylorMade.
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 QI35. There's a whole nother podcast, people. If you want to listen to us chat with the TaylorMade people themselves on some of this stuff and kind of get TaylorMade's take on this, please. We'll link that in this one as well. We had that one posted on the day of embargo, so that one's going to be already up and rocking. But we're going to take you through the line here quickly and tell you what we think about it as well. So as we do with everything else, let's start at the top and work our way down. What do we got? QI35.
Yeah, so we got like 4 models here, which is pretty fantastic. A robust selection of heads to choose from.
Robust.
So LS, low spin. That one, let's see.
Flux capacitor.
Stock. Yeah, and we can talk about some of the details here because I think a lot of this is going to go unappreciated, but TaylorMade did some cool design things. So stock QI35, the core model as they call it.
Yep.
The max 10K tramp stamp right here.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally that one I already did. Finally this one, yeah. Max Light, which, to kind of show you that it's not just taking weight out of the Max, they do have a different cosmetic here as well. So, 4 models.
Core
QI
technology.
35. Yeah, well, let's start with the name, right? That's a good place to start. So where does QI 35 come from? QI kind of continuing on from where they were.
Our quest for something.
Right. Yes, the quest for inertia at the time. So QI. But the 3 is TaylorMade's 3 pillars, as they call them. So that's going to be form, function, and this one is very surprising for TaylorMade, fitting. And there's a really interesting story that goes with that. And then the 5 is 5 ways to fit, that's really dicey. Like it's 4 heads plus another head, but that other head actually comes in 4 heads. So by my count, it should be QI 38, but that's an entirely different conversation.
I know it's trying to get the story to match the numbers that work to match the.
Let's go.
It's one of those kind of deals. I was saying that with the fairway woods, like the 10K. There's no 10K in a fairway wood. We don't care about MOI. We don't talk about it the same way. But you can get a really, really forgiving fairway wood that gets up to like a combined MOI of like 6,000. So why isn't there the QI 6 fairway? Not going to happen. Anyway, back to drivers. Okay, so
let's talk about those real quick, the little kind of design things they did, kind of cool that you may not notice unless somebody like me tells you about them. But on each one, you'll see kind of like a little green triangle, and on the LS and the standard core model, that's it's forwardly placed, if you will.
Forwardly, I like that word.
When we get to the Max, for example, that triangle is in the back. So that kind of suggests where your weight is allocated. Likewise with what we call the flux capacitor.
Flux capacitor,
in the LS, you kind of see that forwardly placed, consolidated weight, and then when you get to the 10K, and this is the light, but that's fine. Same idea. You kind of see how that triangle is spread out, showing you the weight pushed to the perimeter. So
it's suggestive.
Little things like that.
Suggestive industrial design.
Fun. It's fun.
It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. What's different? So if I got a QI 10, what improvements
Yeah,
have
so
been
I
made?
mean, starting with this core model, for me, it's the addition of the flip weighting. So now you
Yeah,
have the back weight, the forward weight, flippy floppy.
flippy
Guys should
floppy.
know how this works. If you listen to this show, like right? Forward, lower spinning, flatter trajectory, weight back, higher trajectory, more MOI, typically more spin with that as well. So just that additional fitting piece. And then, you know, I'm not a big MOI guy. I don't 10K is cool, but I think it's not for everybody and it's kind of almost a fitting variable. But
Sure.
it is intriguing to me that on this core model, so this isn't the max, it's not the max light. This is not their highest MOI offering. They're still above 9,000 in that total MOI number. And again,
Hmm.
we can talk about the legitimacy of that number some other day, but it does provide kind of an easy reference point. LS, we can say, right? People have said, oh, they copied Cobra's homework. Like, yeah, to an extent, right? But there's only so many ways you can position weights, and this way,
Right.
3 weights. So again, flippable, one in the back. It's
One
really
here, one
efficient. You don't have all that structure tied up into the track.
there. Hmm.
And again, being efficient with weight, that kind of brings us to really the big performance piece of the story, the function, if you will.
There you go.
And we haven't talked about it in a few
Function.
years. It seems like it's just one of these things that comes around again,
Right.
right?
I was gonna
Where
say it kind
it's
of it got
like
put
for a
over
while, it's like,
here.
oh,
That
we saved weight and we put it low and back.
right.
Okay, cool, right?
Done.
Because that's what everybody does. But here
Hmm.
it's really about pushing the center of gravity lower in every head. Cobra
CG
calls it the neutral
projection.
axis. TaylorMade the CG projection, right? I'm trying to think, kind of if we take
Yeah. How do you explain that one in a
so you
way
take
that's
a line,
easy?
right?
Yep.
Draw this perpendicular to the face,
Okay.
and then kind of take that line and run it, or
Yeah.
excuse me,
Imagine
parallel to
where
the
the
face,
CG is, and
parallel to the face
yep.
with the loft, and then perpendicular back through the head. The closer you can get that to the center of gravity, as close as you can get it to that CG projection, that's going to bring down spin. It's going to increase ball speed. It basically improves efficiency of contact.
Dropping that CG. Think
From
about every place kind of at that CG or slightly above is an area of opportunity where you're going to get a decent result, right?
Yeah,
We're,
it's kind
we're
of your
holding
where spin drops relative to really everything is relative to center, right? We talk about
sure.
reducing backspin. That's probably a good way to put it. So
Hmm.
you're going to get lower spin compared to impact below the center of gravity, below that projection is
Right.
going to create a higher spin condition. So if you can take that CG projection and move it down the face,
Hmm.
right, that center of gravity and the CG projection, then you're going to have a bigger area up here where you're have the opportunity to reduce spin and create distance.
And that's kind of that better misses idea, right? So if we
Yeah,
can make the
exactly.
misses better, lowering the CG relative to that neutral axis without giving up a lot of forgiveness or any in some cases, because
Yeah. So again, I mean, the max is that's still their 10K offering. The core is going to push 9,000 beyond 9,000 with the heavier weight in the back.
mhm,
Even the LS is what I want to say weight back 7,000 ish. I'd have to go to the article to pull the exact number.
mhm. And here's an
But
intriguing one as you're maybe looking that up is so when I was going through my fitting with these, we saw this a lot last year. A lot of their staffers, other players, ending up in the core model. Those that chose to play. Now there were some that didn't go into QI10, but you go, man, that's a lot of. You would automatically think faster players, tour players playing the LS, right? Like that's what it is, and that wasn't the case. We saw a lot of players go into that core model, and part of that kind of fits with, and this is going to lead into that fitting part of the conversation is yes, you don't want to give up a ton of ball speed for the sake of forgiveness, but what if we could keep you in the most forgiving head without limiting ball speed in terms of where the CG projection actually is like one 1/10 of 1 millimeter or something different.
Yeah, I mean it's effectively right on that CG projection. So
Yeah.
real quick, so 7700 on the LS with the
Okay.
weight back, and then weight forward 68 or
Mhm.
6.8 rather, however you want to phrase it. So
Yeah.
6800. So not not all world terrible either for what it is, but
Which head would I start with? What do I kind of need here? But I didn't see this coming. You didn't see this coming. And frankly, I'm not sure if anybody did, but not just the fact that TaylorMade's leaning into fitting as part of the conversation. They've been there for a long time, but
even
it's how they're
personal
doing
fitting.
it's how they're doing it.
Yeah.
This blew my mind. This actually made me stop and reevaluate a lot of things, and that does not happen very often with new product launches. So, what did they do, and why should people care?
Yeah, so they're basing a lot of the shaft portion of the fitting. So the TaylorMade kind of approach to fitting is figure out which head the golfer needs. Right?
Hmm.
Figure out which head is going to be right, then move into the shaft. And shafts have always been kind of a mystery, right? There's fitters who know how
The
different shafts
dubious
are.
part of the industry. I've been
Yeah,
quoted as saying once
and you
or twice.
see certainly fitters that have favorite lines and go-tos. I've mentioned all the time. I've seen a guy who fits almost exclusively accurate, and I'm like, how come 85% of your fittings are for the same shaft? That doesn't make sense.
Margins,
You
baby.
do see
Sometimes it's
that.
margins.
But TaylorMade is basing, kind of the initial shaft, the whittling down, if you will, off a metric called closure rate. Now, this is a metric exclusive to Foresight GC Quad. Probably get it on Bushnell systems as well. If you're paying for head data, I wouldn't swear to it, but probably.
Hmm.
We've been collecting closure rate in most wanted testing basically since it was added to the mix,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where we've asked fitters, OEMs, everybody we talk to, like, hey, what do you make of this? Is there anything, like, what is it? What does it mean? What can I glean from it? What is the value?
Who cares? What is?
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the answer really was, yeah, we think there's something there maybe, but we're not sure. And basically, it's very simply, right? It's a measure of how quickly the club is rotating into
Yeah. Think
impact.
like a door, right? As that door comes to close, like there's
Weeping,
some people that
weeping,
close it
weeping.
very quickly. There's some people that close it very slowly. Think about kind of face rotation
There you
into
go.
impact. And let's be clear though, with this as we get into it, one isn't better. It's not better to have a lower closure rate or a higher closure rate. The issue is consistent closure rate and matching that up with a shaft profile that works for you.
Yeah, most people are going to have a closure rate, 2,000 to low mid threes, and it's degrees per second, I believe, is the
Mhm.
actual
I think that's right.
value of that metric. And TaylorMade is using it as kind of the basis to determine kind of what the ideal tip flex of the shaft should be. So you kind of think of transition. It's not an absolute rule, but generally your transition guides kind of the butt stiffness of the shaft. So if you tend to be very aggressive in transition, fitter will typically recommend firmer butt section.
That'd be you.
Yeah, yeah. And then closure rate,
Yep.
according to TaylorMade, is really kind of the starting point, if you will, a really good foundation for determining what the tip flex should be.
It
And
was
so
opposite.
generally, right, broadly speaking, if you have a fast closure rate, the recommendation is going to be a softer tip shaft, a slower closure rate, firmer tip shaft, and then obviously there are degrees of
In
you know,
betweenness.
yes, degrees of in betweenness, and so they've kind of built a catalog of shafts that integrate kind of the tip flex correlated to a closure rate,
Hmm.
and that's foundationally what they're using to make the shaft recommendation.
And it's
And this is more to your area of interest, but it has kind of changed some things on the tour as well.
yeah, and it's we'll see where this leads. Talking with Matt Simone, right? Matt used to be with a different OEM with Ping. He's moved over to TaylorMade now and is overseeing a lot of this stuff. An intensely bright individual, and this world of fitting and how, like I said, kind of the idea was, hey, there's something here. We don't know what it is. We don't know even if, once we figure out what it is, how we might apply it to actually help golfers. So this is kind of like version 1.0. right? Where what they've been able to find so far is like you said, this correlation, closure rate to kind of overall broad profile of the shaft. But like I said, example that they use, I thought that was really cool, is Charlie Hall. She has a very fast closure rate. So we're talking north of 3,000 or right around 3,000. You say, sure. So think something like Ventus Red. Think something, they, again, different shafts, but kind of that red profile throughout the industry. Colin Morikawa, very low closure rate. Think something stiffer tipped, right? Ventus Black,
All the blacks.
All blacks.
The blacks and the whites.
The blacks. it what and during my fitting I fit into a red, and I was like, because in my and here's the part where it kind of lost me a little bit, is I tend to launch the ball high and play at elevation here in Colorado, so a little more spin isn't a bad thing, but thinking, hey, I want to bring that down, I don't want the spin to get away from me, but I fit into a Ventus Red.
And we've talked about this, right? Like this whole idea, the perception is that the shaft is this magic lever that will fundamentally change launch and spin, right? And the shaft industry has perpetuated this with this idea of like, oh, this is our low spin offering and our mid spin and our high spin. But in reality, right, that most of that is coming from the head. That's why TaylorMade has 4 models and they come in different lofts, right? The idea is let's get very close to the launch and spin that we need from the head. The shaft,
fine-tune.
TaylorMade's viewpoint and others is more of this left to right and tightening dispersion, right? It's yielding more consistent delivery of the club head.
But when you get a shaft that matches up with you, a lot of times golfers say, oh, it feels good, right? Then you're going to be 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, or in my case,
whatever that number is, right?
Whatever that number is.
There's no good closure rate. There's no bad closure rate on the PGA Tour, right? Best players in the world. You've got, again, 2,000 to 3,000 plus. It's just who you are, like a thumbprint, part of your DNA. No good, no bad. But again, when you get, as Chris was hinting at, when you get that shaft that works for you, again, TaylorMade's new fitting philosophy, it's going to be interesting to see if other fitters kind of try and integrate this. But the idea is when that shaft is right, not only like what you're going to see tighter dispersion downrange, but those closure rates as a quantifiable metric, those standard deviations are going to tighten up. So that's really kind of what fitters are going to look at is like, all right, we know what these closure rates are ballpark wise. Now, how can we make them really tight by finding the right shaft? The one last piece of this, closure rate is a foresight only metric. TrackMan, so that's a little bit of a liability, right? TrackMan, great system in its own right. So what they do for TrackMan can't kind of see the face, so the fiducial system doesn't work. But in another kind of, I guess you could call it technical first partnership, TrackMan actually has the CAD files for these TaylorMade drivers. So during the fitting, a fitter using TrackMan can select the TaylorMade driver, at which point the system now knows the actual geometry of the club head, right? You're kind of getting rid of some of those anomalies and how TrackMan tracks the head, because again, it knows the real geometry of the club head. And then they're working on developing a metric that approximates closure rate. It's never going to be exactly the same thing, but if you're getting similar information in the same way and able to see, again, those standard deviations tighten up when the fitting is right, that's ultimately what you're looking for. So definitely on foresight,
the right category, I'm sure, of shaft, right? And so, like I said, for no other reason than that information, because that is a new parameter. It's something we haven't talked about before in terms of fitting. And I was like, one of my first questions to Matt when we were late, I was like, hey, that's awesome. You got that on the drivers. Can this translate to fairway woods, hybrids, irons, wedges, blah, 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 right throughout the bag? And the answer is basically, I think so. But, a lot more data to be gathered to try to understand, because you do use clubs differently, and to the idea that it's part of your DNA very well might be the case.
So I mean, ongoing research, and that's what's fascinating, right? TaylorMade thinks they've found enough to integrate this into the fitting system for the drivers, but we'll see where this goes. Because again, you do get a closure rate with every club in the bag. It's not like
Right.
Foresight goes, it looks like that's not a driver, so I don't care.
Right.
You
Right.
get it, and so it's how do you take that number and apply it? Because we know from our own experience and digging deeper, like there are some metrics that maybe aren't part of the conventional set, not ball speed, launch angle, spin rate, even descent
Right.
angle, right? There are some other metrics in there that can really help guide the fitting process, perhaps in a way that's better than is being done right now.
Here's 2 talking points on the Fairway Woods and hybrids, and we're going to move on to Mizuno. Is same things kind of kicking around on the Fairway Woods and hybrids, meaning you're going to have a couple models. You're going to have the Max Light.
Look at that. Like, that's how shiny it is. You can watch yourself.
There is a lot of polish
across a video feed in the high polish. This looks like it was inspired by like Star Wars. That Phasma, was that the name of the all silver stormtrooper lady? Like that's.
I'll go with you on that one. I'll defer. Here's the 2 big pieces. So they're going to keep same models, basically you're accustomed to, similar descriptions, etc. But we get adjustability in all 5 woods throughout the line, which I think is a huge win. And secondly, also in the 7 wood in the tour head. So the challenge here has always been, with adjustability, the trade-off being there's the tour head, which we got our 40 grand.
There's your head in the tour head.
Yeah, that's my head in the tour head. That's said a lot of polish. The interesting thing to note there is so you got the through slot, right? The speed pocket on the bottom. That has an awful lot to do with how the face is able to behave, maximize ball speed, particularly on low center face hits, which not a shock to anyone, is where most people hit a hybrid and a fairway wood. Whether it's off the tee or off the deck, you tend to see center face to slightly lower center face impact. So TaylorMade's like, hey, we are not going to give up any type of face performance to add adjustability. So the challenge here was, how do we, or can we, get both of those things to happen? And finally, on this version, QI35, they believe they have that. You can flip it. It's asymmetrical. So you can take it out, rotate it 180 degrees, put it back in, and again, adjust it all the way front, all the way back, and there are incremental positions in between front and back. So again, take that with a with the hosel adapter. There is an awful lot, like I said, of tinkering to be done with this particular fairway wood.
Yeah, they did. It's worth noting. So the standard no designation core model, they did slim it down a little bit to kind of bump it a little bit towards that tour model that came out. I actually really like the size and shape of this one. Maybe my favorite TaylorMade hybrid, at least aesthetically, in a while.
Okay.
Again, there's your kind of that same chromium crown design throughout the lineup. So again, looks good.
All right. Well, if you're an iron person, should you be excited about what Mizuno has coming out, Tony, or is out? Run me through this. I know we talk about
Yeah, we'll go fast here. So first up, JPX forged. So with
925 forged.
Yes, 925. Thank you.
Quintessential players distance, right?
Yeah, with the forged out of the lineup, or excuse me, the tour out of the lineup. This is kind of the small one in the JPX lineup now. So with that, little bit smaller, more compact. I wouldn't say it looks like a player's
the category.
Iron, it's not. It's also not massive. So this is a nice kind of sized iron for somebody who likes a little bit smaller head but still needs that forgiveness. What's really different here is the construction. So it has a forged kind of face and neck piece. So this is typical Mizuno forging, right? Mizuno's belief is if you're going to say the iron is forged, the part that actually makes contact with the ball should be forged.
And don't break it up.
Right. And then they have this welded back piece. This is 431 stainless. And while you can kind of lament the multi-material construction in a Mizuno iron, JPX is kind of the more tech forward cavity, if you
Mm-hmm.
category. So that makes sense, and it allowed Mizuno to get way more aggressive in what's under the hood. So by kind of being able to take out more material than they had previously, the face is a lot faster. The COR area, Mizuno's kind of sweet spot measurement, if you will, for
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of their forgiveness metric, really. It's like how
Yeah.
much ball speed are we preserving across the face? That's bigger. New sole design. So this is really interesting too. I don't know how this is going to come through, but
See that pretty
kind
good.
of
We
a
see kind of the tri-cut on there.
yeah. So more leading edge bounce, trailing edge relief, similar to what you'd get with a wedge. And so the idea is it's going to kind of move in and out of the turf a little more smoothly, if you will.
Effectively plays as a thinner sole, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've heard recently a lot of people talking about the feel of Srixon irons and maybe even feeling better than Mizuno. And while Mizuno is going to say that their GFF, their grain fill forged HD process, gives them the biggest feel advantage, continuous grain structure. I've seen it, I believe it, but they do think like something in that Srixon sole design was helping to create what is perceived as better feel, and so they think that by modifying their sole design, they can get a little bit of a feel bump as well as improve
Yeah, because you know what
performance.
feels really good? Hitting it dead nut center every time. So when you
Yeah.
just absolutely square one up and flush it, it feels really good. So to the degree that a sole grind can help you find center of the face maybe more often, very well could be something to that. All right, tell me about my iron, Tony. Tell me about my iron.
So this is the Mizuno Pro
Pro
S3.
S.
So this is kind of the S lineup, if you will, which is a subcategory under Mizuno Pro,
What
is
the S
new.
stands for? Sub.
I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe special.
Mm.
What's
Samsung.
this guy's? So this is the S3, but also this is functionally your JPX Tour replacement.
Uh,
This is single piece, fully forged, typical Mizuno construction, 1025E. Again, this S series, new for Mizuno. Be interesting to see where they go with it, but the promise is, first, these are always going to be compact, player-centric designs. Mizuno
yep.
feels like maybe it kind of lost the better player a little bit, hasn't done as well as it could have servicing that player in recent years. So these are going to be player-centric designs, single piece forgings, a mix of cavity backs like this and likely blades. And what we're being told is that this will have a 4-year life cycle.
4 years. That's huge. That sounds. It feels like I said to me. It feels very Japanese in the sense that we tend to see that with other again Japanese manufacturers where
Put this out.
the
Like the
product
top line
cycles
on
are a
this
little
is
bit.
so thin there practically isn't one, and you should
Oh,
really see the
it looks
before on it.
so good. You might even note it. Like some people might say it looks slightly more square.
Yep.
I think that's fair. JPX Tour that chassis compared to the MP line, a little more angular, if you will, a little more squared off. The existing, like 221, 241, the last couple of blades, certainly more compact. This one's a slightly longer heel to toe. So to me, it's like,
It's
yeah, it's like
very, very JPX.
it's the MPJP. Yeah, like that's the thing I'm so intrigued about this particular one is I really liked the footprint of the JPX tours.
I think a lot of
Um,
people did. I mean,
I think
just
a lot of people, but
yeah.
always found myself going back to 241, 243 because I've been an MP guy for so long. And so for those people that were, MP 37, 33, 30, 62s, da 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 da. We can go on and on and on. Your favorites, the MP 32s. This
And
is
just
the modern uh, version, right, of kind of all of those coming together in one head. And given the fact, I don't know if we mentioned this, but the 925 forged actually should feel quote unquote better, if you will, than the current 243s, which kind of blows me away. So in my mind, I'm going, geez, if you're a combo set person,
yeah, and the line, to
you know,
this represents a fork in the Mizuno Pro line. So, and the way it's explained to us, it's the difference between timeless, right? These type of designs compact blades, cavity back, single piece forgings
Mm-hmm.
don't really have an expiration date, right? You can modify
Sure.
shape and move some stuff around, but
Yeah.
the technology, the underlying technology doesn't really advance, whereas the stock Mizuno Pro line will be timely designs, right? Things that you expect to improve over time. Like ball speeds will increase over time. Forgiveness will increase over time as new technologies and constructions emerge. So this
Yep.
is really kind of that classic line. And we don't expect it's going to evolve a ton, but you could start to see like what you used to see in the older Mizuno lineups, where you just had like a selection of these very player centric designs. So probably not for me as much as I did love the JPX Tour, but I do love kind of the direction that it's going. Real quick,
I
Mizuno
forgot.
wedges.
Okay.
Yeah, two
My
new
bad.
wedges from Mizuno. T1 and T3. So I brought the pretty ones. The T3, T1, relative to the past one, really sharper leading edge, flatter sole camber, loft optimized micro grooves for channeling moisture away. You're gonna kind of see them. It'll be best I can show here. Little taller right in here. Again, just trying to raise
a little
the
higher in
CG
that
up.
heel section.
And the big thing for me, like again, more of a teardrop shape of the two wedges. Kind of the really interesting detail is here. These are the first time Mizuno has done what they call a master check on their wedges. Basically, if you're familiar with Mizuno and the guys in Japan, most notably Turbo, right? These guys that do a lot of the hand grinding work.
Yep.
So what Mizuno does, their master check is basically, hey, we design these in CAD, same as everybody else.
Yep.
We make the shapes. Then they hand them off to these masters like Turbo at Mizuno who do kind of like some hand shaping and kind of remove some of the harshness, the angles that are kind of created in the CAD process, and just kind of smooth things out more than would sort of be kind of is possible coming directly out of the software. Just really make it smooth and flow and look really good. And then they scan the head, and that becomes the final shape.
And that goes back into CAD, right? Then that's what they actually use. So
you're right. This is the T3 wedge. Easy story here, just kind of a little bit larger profile,
but
wider
not
sole.
super large.
No, it's definitely not a big wedge, and it is kind of slightly cavity back. So on paper more forgiving, a little bit higher MOI, but without being goofy looking. So it's just an alternative for guys who like a little bit bigger wedge.
Are you more excited about Callaway Chrome Tour Triple Diamond Ball or the new Srixon golf balls?
This one,
new Z-Star.
No disrespect to Srixon, but Chrome Tour Triple Diamond, the new Chrome Tour ball in a medium gray box. Sits between, I guess, gold. It's not really between gold and black, but there are the gold accents here. So this is really simple. Like this is Callaway's answer to Left Dash.
Yeah.
The background here, when they launched Chrome Tour last year, they did a whole bunch of challenges, had golfers hit the new ball against whatever they were playing. So they were doing these challenges. The idea was to show more speed or more greenside spin relative to the competition. They said they won about 80% of the time, but the one they couldn't beat was Left Dash, for obvious reasons, right? We know what that ball is.
Yep.
And so this is their answer.
High compression, very fast, very firm.
Low spin.
So
that's what you're going to expect here. A firmer, faster, lower spinning Chrome Tour. I appreciate what Callaway's saying. They're not saying, "Oh, we're going to kill Left Dash on greenside spin." They're like, "Yeah, no, we have kind of the same challenges in that respect as Titleist does." So it's a Left Dash alternative. And I'm told, I haven't had a chance to go out and do anything with it yet, but I'm told like this is legitimately a low spin ball, not like what the previous Chromesoft XLS, which was just a lower spinning Chromesoft X, but was still kind of, at best mid spin.
Right.
I'm told this is
like
a very low spin golf.
Super low spin. Yeah.
3 new Z-Stars. Lineup is familiar. Stock Srixon Z-Star, Z-Star XV, and then the Diamond.
Diamond goes in between, right? So let's go low.
The interesting thing here is a new cover offers the same performance, so no performance changes, but it has they've integrated a material called biomass into it, which is a corn-based urethane alternative, if you will. So my read on it is a mix of like
Lower
this
calorie.
biomass and urethane, and the idea is simply to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. So this is an environmental play. That's
Love
it.
it.
Same performance. Big picture across the lineup, more separation between models.
Yeah.
So kind of stretch it out a little bit. So
Yep.
Z Star is going to be softer with lower spin. XV is going to be still the firmest, probably firmer still, more speed, more iron spin.
Yep.
And then the Diamond, which is kind of become like the cult favorite of the Srixon lineup.
Yeah, because it's right in
That's
between
gonna
those two.
it's going to be a little softer to give it more separation from XV. Also reduce driver spin.
Yeah,
There
it's
will
going to be
also be
interesting.
divide models available.
Again, finding performance and fit throughout different lines, and now to me, Callaway. So now Callaway has their answer, like you said, to Left Dash. So they feel like my sense is Callaway feels like, hey, we have a ball to compete directly against the hallmark ball in each category. I mean, Pro V1, Pro V1X, and then Left Dash. We know that those dominate in the tour space. That's not new information to anybody. Srixon, to me, is a little bit different, where they kind of try to go almost slightly in between those a little bit,
They
where
do. Yeah.
XV is their firmest one, but it's not as I don't think it's going to be as firm as like a Left Dash, right? But it's it's not the same as just like Pro V1X, so they're still a little bit different. And then, like,
Yeah, I think too, as a challenger brand, and Srixon certainly qualifies as, I think everybody's a challenger brand to an extent, but
yeah,
I think as you kind of get closer and closer to Titleist, and nobody's super close, but as you kind of edge up, and Callaway is a clearly defined number 2 in the category now.
yeah,
It makes sense to go more
to
directly
have your head to
at
head,
Titleist. Yeah, where if you're and if you're a DTC brand, that kind of makes sense too, because you're competing primarily on price.
yeah, because you say, hey, I want that performance, if you will, or I want that spec at this price. So, okay, here's our lower price alternative to Pro V1. Great, $35 a dozen. Enjoy it.
And we should probably mention, right, 3 new Max Fly balls.
3 Max Fly balls, Tour X, and Tour S, and no shock that they'll.
You know what you're getting there. I mean, just the big note there is a change in the dimple pattern on the X to bring flight down a little bit. But those are going to continue to be great values. List price $39.99, but pretty much on sale.
Yeah, they're always on sale too for $70 or whatever. So if you're paying more than $35 a dozen for Max Fly, just look for a coupon or whatever. They're always out there. Let's finish up with Callaway.
Yeah, so
is that
last
a new,
on our crazy list
travel?
for today. So Cleveland RTZ wedges. The story here is a new material. New materials tend to be kind of one of those things that actually does move the needle. That changes the equation here. So it's called Z alloy. They're not saying exactly what it is. One of these, hey, we worked with a supplier to develop a proprietary alloy. All ours. It's not 8620, which is common wedge material.
Yep, 8620 is pretty industry standard.
Yeah, so lower density, which gives them a little more freedom to move weight around. So there is kind of an MOI attached to it, but it's MOI without fundamentally changing the look of the wedge. So that's intriguing. Better feel. They say it feels noticeably
10% softer, right?
Yeah. Better durability, and really kind of what you can take from that is it doesn't rust. So they will offer raw wedges, what they call tour rack wedges. But the new Z alloy does not rust, and Srixon, their guy Casey Schultz basically rust flat out makes a worse product. Like that's the statement from Srixon, Cleveland, etc., Dunlop, Lexio, all of the brands. Yeah, rust is not good. We know that. And so they have a raw wedge that will not rust. That's certainly intriguing. The disappointing thing to me is
I wanted another couple grinds.
Yeah, so they're sticking with 3 primary grinds, low, mid, high, and their argument is, look, they fit most golfers, and the letter systems that other uses are confusing, and maybe so, but it also feels like a cop-out. Like, we just, we don't want to create options for golfers. And part of that is...
Then they have the one specialty grind. Right,
which is just like a kind of a high toe C grind kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like a high toe, low bounce C grind. So it's really like 3.5 or 3 in a specialty. When you've got on loft bounce grind combinations, when your competitors, Titleist obviously with Vokey, Callaway with the Opus line, Ping with
20 plus. I mean, Ping's push. I think Ping's above 20, and so like. the industry standard is to provide real fitting options and
Right.
that work to the course conditions you play and the types of shot you play. And you cannot do that with 3 grinds. You
Right.
absolutely cannot do that. You can cover the middle of the bell curve, which is, statistically 50%. So, and
Yeah.
even that. So
That's
yeah,
yeah.
I get it. I understand you're kind of a smaller these days anyway, kind of on a small mainstream wedge brand, but it does feel like it wasn't a level of effort we were prepared to make. It
Well, and
sounds to me. So.
yeah, and to me, it's like, again, with any space where you're not the top dog or whatever, you can't be as good, right? Um, you have to be better, to get somebody to switch in some ways. And so, okay, head to head, maybe it is a better material than 8620. That's what they're saying. Maybe it is. Don't know. Maybe it does offer some of those advantages. Man, a raw wedge that doesn't rust, maybe that is an advantage, etc. But if we're really talking about fitting, and again, we're talking to the hardcore golfer that tends to be more into this stuff than others, um, the lack of versatility in the grind space, I think, is a downside. Like I said, it's exactly what's allowed, or one of the things that's allowed, I think, Ping to creep up a little bit, certainly Callaway in areas, and even if let's say you had 10 grinds and people still fit, I would imagine if we talked to Voki, what percentage of golfers still fit into maybe 3 or 4, M grind, D grind, F grind. Uh, there's probably a bulk, right, that fit into those. You
Oh,
know,
you have, yeah. I mean,
you
so
know,
there's a reason why the F grind is almost all of their gap wedge business, for example, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
even that,
So,
it's 2 bounce options. So to
right.
me, it's like hey, we've got the pinnacle of technology by TaylorMade standards today, right
Yep.
here. And
Hmm.
if they were to say, yeah, but we're gonna do our loft skews in such a way where we're only gonna make it available to half of golfers,
Right.
I'd be like,
Right.
that feels like a little bit of a miss. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel about these wedges. But anyway, 170 for the standard, 190 for the unplated. We skipped a step raw version.
You always get on this. You always, hey,
Uh,
we're going to give you
there. I mean, there's some things with head weights and things like that, but
economies of
yeah,
scale. I
it
get it.
is kind of
I,
funny. Like we're gonna skip the finishing step and we're gonna charge you more. I mean, there's more
could I
to
get a
it than that, but
car, a
still,
raw paint job car, and pay more for it? I don't like that one in blue. I
yeah,
want it in raw,
yeah.
and I'll pay you more.
Yeah.
Pleasure having you with us today. We out.